I've achieved many things that I've always wanted to achieve. I've done all the drugs until they've stopped working or almost killed me. I've loved and lost, and I've spent an unforgivable amount of time chasing women. I've tried most of the spiritual practices on earth. I've played the games. I've traveled. I've built some success, and yet, life seems to have lost its thrills. The daemon is desire. And honestly, desire is the first principle of transformation. The guy who wants it more usually wins. And right here, we have this funny little meme of this guy on the far left side of the spectrum saying, I want stuff. And then we have, perhaps a more developed man saying, desire is the root of all suffering. The Buddhist philosophy. And then on the far end of the spectrum, we have the guy saying, desire is the root cause of all greatness. And I think both of these are true. Desire creates suffering, and suffering creates greatness. And welcome to the great paradox of life. What do you think inspired Michelangelo to paint the Sistine Chapel, other than a burning, freaking desire and devotion to a craft bigger than himself and the desire to be famous? It's the same thing with Bruce Lee. What motivated him to train and become such an excellent martial artist and a Hollywood star, other than the will to be great, right? The will to actualize his full potential. It's the same thing with Alexander the Great, Francis Bacon, George Washington. Like any real hero you look at, what do they got? They got daemon inside of them. And so desire, this is kind of the Nietzschean philosophy, right? Nietzsche said, keep holy your highest hope. All that is good, it proceeds from strength. It proceeds from the will to power. And this is actually where all art, greatness, cultural growth, it comes from. It comes from pressure and heat. It comes from the daemon. But also the daemon, it's catabolic, okay? Meaning it wants to consume you. This is the dangerous part of the daemon, my friends. As Nietzsche said, great men are overflowings. They are explosions. They spend themselves. They do not preserve themselves. Nietzsche was the philosopher of the daemon. When he says that great men overflow, they spend themselves, it's that feeling inside of you that doesn't care about self-destruction, that doesn't care about right or wrong. It just wants to overflow and express its full potential into life. That is the daemon. And the daemon creates great artists. We have J.K. Rowling here in a very interesting, funny post. She's responding to one of these health fags, and I say that. I actually like the people who are really into health, but this guy is saying that caffeine hinders the brain's recovery following sleep deprivation by suppressing cerebral gray matter response. And J.K. Rowling is like, my entire creative process revolves around little sleep and coffee, as does most great geniuses and artists of our day. You see, they're up at 4 a.m. drinking Monsters and Red Bulls or coffee and just pouring their heart onto the page. The daemon, great art, genius, it is often catabolic. It is using your body, your mind, your spirit, your energy to produce something, to overflow with something. And this is actually a good thing if you can bring it into a beautiful harmony with your soul. You see, the daemon is so freaking dangerous and leads to self-destruction because it creates egotism. It creates addiction. It creates grandiosity. If we look at this map over here, here's the shadow side of the daemon, right? Burnout, egotism, Lucifer, addiction, grandiosity. You know who fell into the shadow of the daemon really hard? Kanye West, right? Kanye West in his early career, he went around to record companies saying, I'm going to be the next big thing. I'm going to be the best. I was born to do this. He had a tremendous daemon inside of him, right? And he became the best, right? And then he went insane. And this is what we see across history, my friends, is men of great daemon and women of great daemon, they literally blow their brains out. They go insane. Alexander the Great drank himself to death. Alan Watts, the great spiritual teacher of the 1900s, he also drank himself to death. Hemingway, he blew his brains out. Kurt Cobain blew his brains out, right? We see this, even someone like Bruce Lee died young. I don't know if it's because of his daemon, but there's a reason there's a 27 Club. my friends. People with great passion inside of them, these passions, they lead to great conflicts. They lead to great tensions. They lead to great addictions and self-destructive behaviors. And they get to this point where they're like, fuck it, I'm going to let my daemon overflow and explode through me, and they lose themselves, right? And this is the danger of daemon maxing. It's one of the most dangerous paths on earth, but some of you won't be able to avoid it because you are born for more. And if you are born for more, you need this video more than anything. Even though I am going to use some freaking conceited language in this, my friends, this is going to speak to the right people. You see, surrender is the breakthrough point of all true self-realization and all true self-actualization, but can only come after you build up enough energy and enough sense of self and self-worth and confidence where you can surrender into greatness. That's what I want to talk about. So my journey with the daemon, my friends, real quick here before we talk about surrender, is it ruled my life from 14 to 25. I was young. When I was young, I had burning blood. I wanted to be excellent, you know? And this led me to becoming valedictorian of my high school class, going to an Ivy League school. It led me to throwing all the parties and doing all the sports and it tried everything. But it also led to such tremendous addictions, heartbreaks, failures, disillusionment, like just rock bottoms for so many years. And I've made videos talking about this, and it left me weary, right? And the healing healing demanded something of me. It demanded that I learn what sobriety is. Healing demanded that I learn what my heart is and how to love people and how to actually lead and how to become, more towards that father archetype than the hero archetype, right? And healing demanded steadiness, surrender, a new way forward. And the great work that I've uncovered at this point in my journey is the same idea that Nietzsche discovered at the end of his life. Nietzsche said, the truly great man possesses the soul of Christ and the will of Caesar. How can you combine the soul of Christ with the will of Caesar? And for me, that looks like surrendering with Christ and rising with Caesar. It is the union of the hero and the priest. If we go back to this map up here, the full actualization of the daemon and the will into the earthly plane, it creates power. It creates the hero, right? It creates the king. But if you can combine the hero with the priest, meaning you surrender into heaven, you give it up to God, this is how you can come into your true self and your true self-actualization. So surrender. I want to talk about surrendering with Christ and surrender as a way of life. And this may come across as woo to many of my viewers, but however you relate to this idea, you need to relate to this idea because this is a deep spiritual truth. So I was sitting on a beach there in Sayulita, Mexico for the last month. And I was watching the most beautiful sunset of my entire life when I noticed myself subtly seeking. I was searching for more. I was searching for more peace, a better high, a better mind. I was just searching. I'm a seeker at heart, right? And then I asked myself, what are you searching for, dude? Like, what are you constantly searching for? You're sitting on here at a beach in Sayulita with amazing brothers. Like, your life is made. I'm literally so successful at this point in my life. I'm so happy. What am I searching for? And I often wrestle with feelings of dissatisfaction. And life, I've achieved many things that I've always wanted to achieve. I've done all the drugs until they've stopped working or almost killed me. I've loved and lost, and I've spent an unforgivable amount of time chasing women. I've tried most of the spiritual practices on earth. I've played the games. I've traveled. I've built some success. And yet life seems to have lost its thrills. There's like a deep dissatisfaction in my heart, my friends. And this is the first law of Buddhism. The first noble truth of Buddhism, and that is life is dissatisfaction. And Buddha was a freaking prince, Buddha went around, he tried the spiritual practices, he tried the life of grandeur, read the book Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. And he came to this point where it's like, I'm never going to be satisfied through the world. And this is what I deeply feel is the world's never going to satisfy me. even if, I build the glorious brotherhood in the towns that that I'm here to build, and I have all the success speaking to the people online and, get everything I've ever wanted, life's still going to be dissatisfying at the end. And this is actually a good thing. Okay. This is a good thing, my friends, is when you come to the point of dissatisfaction, it demands deep spiritual transformation inside of you. And this is what Buddha taught, right? So I asked myself, what the hell am I searching for? I thought into the silence, and my first intuition was very clear. I'm searching for God. I'm searching for innocence. I'm searching for youthfulness again, to feel the magic and freedom in the world. My mind and body feel so jaded from years of pain, of chronic illnesses, of insomnia, of addictions, of heartbreaks. My God, my friends, it was the fucking ringer. And it stole my innocence, And I'm like searching for it again. Like, where is that? The magic in the world. And I felt pretty good with that answer. I'm like, okay, I'm going to bring more youthfulness into my life. But then a second voice arose in the stillness. And it said, what do I seek? I seek greatness. I seek glory. I seek self-actualization. I seek the pinnacle. I want to explode with everything that I could be. And that second voice was very noble. It was very true. It was the voice of my daemon, and the daemon and my soul inside of me are both valid. They are both real parts of the human experience, but that daemon was so freaking weary. He was so tired. And deeper inside, right, I knew that I lost the first treasure of my soul chasing the second treasure of the daemon. And this is what happens to most of you. You see, contrary to New Age teachers, I think that one without the other is hollow, that the daemon without the soul is hollow, that if you have peace without purpose, it's nothing. And if you have purpose without peace, it's also nothing, right? Both are twin treasures of the spirit. Having the soul, having the feeling of rebirth and enlightenment and youthfulness, combined with great will and desire and heroism. You see, we all lose the first, the treasure of innocence. Few reach the second, the treasure of greatness, and only the greats attain both. That's what this video is about. You see, how do you attain both? A rebirth into youthfulness and also a relaxed self-actualization of the pinnacle. That's what manhood is. When you're young, you're full of fire, your blood burns hot, and you want to be a hero. And eventually that hero must become a king. And the only way to become a king for a hero, right, is through surrender once your ego and your life and your daemon has burned so hot. And then you let it all go. And you surrender into the path of your heart that you have found through the chaos of trial and error. So let me break that down even deeper. Like I said, I've striven for so long to be more, to do more, to overcome myself, to master my addictions, but I failed over and over and over, and I'm freaking tired of it, And I see now that the only way to truly master my own heart and mind is abandoning desire and gratification completely. A lot of the Nietzsche, daemon maxing, greatness maxing people out there, they're going to be like, abandoning desire. That's like neutering yourself. Why would you do such a thing? And a lot of the Buddhists are like, duh, dude, that's what you've always needed to do. And I want to tell you two stories. So in the Nordic myth of Ragnarok, okay, I'm not an expert on this, but Siegfried slays a dragon. Siegfried is the hero, this embodiment of youthful excellence, slaying the dragon and getting the ring of power. The ring of power that went on to be part of the story of Lord of the Rings. So Siegfried gets this ring, and this ring represents desire itself. It represents the power of the daemon. And he destroys the ring. And in destroying the ring, it represents killing all desire itself. And by doing so, by destroying the ring, the world falls apart in Ragnarok, the war of the heavens and the earth that marks the end of time, so that the new world can be born. So Siegfried gets the ring of desire. He actualizes the full daemon, and then he destroys the ring of power, and it creates the end of the world so that a new world can be born. And this myth, it is one about surrendering yourself, killing desire for a time so that you can be reborn. You see, I deeply believe that Our desire, it starts from a very pure place. Our daemon starts from a very pure place. The will to grow, the will to expand, the will to power. But the daemon gets wrapped up in all of these different temptations and all these different passions, whether it's towards sex or addictions or self-destruction or grandiosity or Lucifer, whatever it is, right? And at a certain point there, you need to let it all go, right? And see what remains at the essence of who you are, and live your life in a way where you are just reborn into your actually actualized self. And this means killing desire for a time. If you're at the point in your life where you're ready to be reborn into the man or woman you were meant to be, this is the path. You see, one point I want to make here is I'm committing to a radical period of sobriety. I'm pretty deep into this practice right now, and it's been hard. Radical sobriety to me means no scrolling, no vapes, no tobacco, no drugs, right? No addictions, like a very simple life. And I've tried this, guys, I've been trying to actualize this for years, for years. But I've always failed. And that's because I have pretty bad impulse control when it comes to certain things. And I've also failed because it's not so much about commitment. You see, commitment comes from the daemon. It comes from the yang energy of desire. It comes from the willpower. But when my willpower gets weak and I'm tired and, temptations abound around me, I fail. The actual way to surrender, the actual way of sobriety and, becoming what you're meant to be is surrendering like Christ. This is how Christ overcame the world. And this is called victory through surrender. So let me tell you a quick story of Christ and Buddha that I'm going to use in many videos. But Buddha was so dissatisfied with the world and tried so many things and was so let down by it that he's like, I'm going to overcome the world. He wanted it really bad. And what did he do? He went and sit beneath the Bo tree for 49 days and nights, and he surrendered. He surrendered so deeply and so completely to the superior self that he overcame the world. Same thing with Christ out there in the desert. This image of Christ fasting for 40 days and 40 nights and overcoming all the temptations of the underworld, overcoming all the temptations of the devil. How did he do this? He did this through great desire and devotion to God, and then great surrender to God. And whatever spiritual path you're on, I think it's so important that we find a spiritual path, because the spiritual principle of just giving it up, of giving the daemon up, of giving the passion up to God and surrendering is so important. And I really don't think you can do this by yourself.